Being cruel to animals is said to be a sin in Islam. So why would you not stun an animal before you slaughter it? Now, look, I am the first to admit that I have eaten halal meat, and I have eaten meat produced in the shashita method, as exercised by some religious Jews. So call me a hypocrite, fine. I'm not trying to preach, but I don't understand why there is an exemption, as I understand it, under British and EU law for Jewish and Muslim methods of killing animals. I don't care what it says in texts from many centuries ago. We've got to apply the law evenly. What do you think? 84850. Why are we talking about this? We're talking about it because the Tories have been accused of not caring enough about animals, accused of not believing that animals have feelings. Michael Gove, the Environment Secretary, he has hit back, saying that's fake news. And indeed, Michael Gove's policies include introducing CCTV into all slaughterhouses. Let's go next to Abbas, and before I do, I'll remind you of the number. Loads and loads of you queuing up with your calls, 0345 6060 973. Abbas in Redbridge, hello, good morning.
Hi there, Matt, good morning. As a Muslim, we, as with the Jews as well, it's very, very important not to be cruel to animals. And I believe, even if you don't believe in religion, I think we should go wherever the science takes us, because science we see as a mercy from God, because it's a knowledge about how things work and how best perhaps things can be improved. But from a religious point of view, Matt, I think, and what's very important from a scientific point of view, there was a very interesting study done by Hanover University in Germany, and they actually placed probes inside the animal's brain to sense, to see if it felt pain or not. And once it placed those probes, it allowed the animals to heal for about a month or so, and then it slaughtered them according to the Jewish, the Muslim, and the non-religious slaughter with stunning, basically. And what they found was I feel, quite astounding, which is that once the animal's throat is actually cut and the knife reaches the back of the jugular, the pain sensory nerves of the animal are severed. And so the animal actually goes into a sort of a trance, almost in a state of unconsciousness, and ceases to feel pain. And what they found with stunning was that actually the animal felt pain for many more minutes rather than the few seconds of pain or a split second of pain that was felt from the initial incision made within the Jewish or the halal method. So I find it, I think there's a lot of, unfortunately, there are a lot of agendas going on here. And I think often people conveniently miss out, information that can be very valuable and shed a lot of light and clarity on a matter. Just because it's a religion, it has to be bad, it has to be cruel, and it has to be wrong. For example, the Jewish method of kosher, the Jewish legislation is that the knife has to be so sharp that in one incision, one stroke, the knife has to reach the back of the jugular. Within the Islamic method, the knife has to be so sharp that within 3 incisions, i.e., forward, back, and forward again, it has to reach the back of the jugular. Now, it's less than a second for that knife to reach where it has to go. And within the Jewish method and the Islamic method, it is the animal becomes unlawful if you sever the spinal cord. And the wisdom behind that is that because the animal, the pain sensory nerves are severed, yet the spinal cord has to be intact, the brain monitors a lack of blood pressure, and the heart is continuing pumping because you haven't severed the spinal cord, and the animal pushes out the blood, and the meat is far cleaner and far healthier to have using that particular method. Now, so,
Abbas, because I've given you a long time, and I want to get your response to a couple of things. First of all, I have no agenda other than that I want animals to suffer as little as possible. And again, you can accuse me of hypocrisy because I've eaten a lot of animals, and all of them would have suffered to some extent or other. Being killed, even if you're stunned first, is not much fun. And you're suggesting, though, that being stunned first is going to lead to greater distress. I'll ask you this, Abbas. You cite this study, and look, you may be right, or rather the study may be correct. I don't know, I can't answer that, but I'll ask you this. If I would say to you, Abbas, you and I, tomorrow, we're going to go off and be slaughtered. Very, very, very grim thought, of course. So I'll bring myself into it. We're both off to being slaughtered. We both get offered the chance either to be stunned first before we're killed, or to have our throats slit as the method of slaughter. Which would you go for? And I'll tell you which I'd go for.
Well, I'd go wherever the science took me. And if the science proves...
No, don't say if. Don't say if. I'm asking you now, because you've cited the study. So what would you do? I'm asking you, what would you choose?
Well, the problem with these type of analogies, Matt, is that they're not really a glove fit as to what we're really talking about.
Why not?
It becomes a very emotional...
Well, quite right, it should become emotional. If we're taking animals' lives, let's try and imagine ourselves into their positions for a moment. You have a chance to be slaughtered, either with having your neck slit or being stunned first. So do I. I'll tell you what I'd choose. I'd choose to be stunned first. But I would make sure, Abbas, that I'd read your study first. Because if your study's right, then I'd go for the throat slitting. You have read the study, though, and having read the study, which you've quoted in support of the Islamic and the Jewish ways of slaughtering animals, are you telling me right now that if you had the choice, you would have your throat slit rather than being stunned first?
Yeah, absolutely, according to the study. And I think.
Hang on. Let me just test whether you sufficiently believe the study. You say according to the study. You've got to make your decision right now. You've read the study. You've got to make your decision. Do you trust it enough to go with the slitting rather than the stunning?
The honest truth is yes, I do, because I think it was a very detailed study, and as I said, that they had ECG and EEG monitors on the activity of the brain. And they monitored the stress and they monitored the pain that the animal suffered.
So let me just ask you this. Let me just ask you this. And I think that the reasons behind religious methods of killing are all to do with what was healthy and what was hygienic in the old days. One of the reasons why, the reason why I think Orthodox Jews don't eat pork is because it was considered back many centuries ago to be a dirty meat. But let me ask you this, Abbas. If the study revealed the opposite, the same study, the same authority that you trust, and revealed that in fact it is more cruel to slit a throat without stunning, would you still promote the Islamic method of slaughter?
The Islamic method of slaughter...
yes or no, first of all, yes or no?
But I'll answer that, because you're implying that the Islamic mode of slaughter is only slaughtering without any other method taking place, and that's not true. The Islamic method of slaughter is to cause the least amount of pain. So if there was analytical and empirical evidence that would support least harm and least pain into an animal, then that would become the Islamic method. So
hang on, but this study is relatively recent that you're citing, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's quite an old study.
Well, how old?
I think it's more like around the 80s or 90s. It's quite an old study. It's not.
And before then, you seriously think that well, you may be right, but you seriously think that back before this particular study, which you're citing, that the motivation behind the Islamic method of slaughter was the least cruelty to animals, and not interpretations of what it said in the Quran?
Well, I think a lot of the teachings that you have from Moses, from Jesus, and from Muhammad, peace upon him, about fasting, about circumcision, about slaughtering of animals. It's only recently that science has proven that actually these things are beneficial to cut down disease, to cut down complications and problems. Yes, indeed, it was for the least harm to be created. And in fact, as a Muslim, there is something in the Quran which says that there's something that is called halal, and there is something that is called tayyib. And
halal means permitted, doesn't it? Permissible.
Means permitted. But tayyib means that causes the least harm to the environment, to the animal. So, for example, a chicken that's been kept in a cage may be halal to eat, but it will not be tayyib. tayyib meaning that, you caused it stress and you caused it pain. So it is better for you to eat tayyib if you wish to be pure, if you wish to be a good person.
Abbas, thank you very much indeed. Fascinating exchange that. I hope you agree. Abbas in Redbridge. Lots and lots of your calls to take. So I gave Abbas quite a bit of time to defend the Islamic and indeed Jewish methods of slaughter. 0345 6060 973.